Today we are going to discuss characteristics of living organisms. You will be able to enlist the names of 7 characteristics to define the terms movement, respiration, sensitivity, growth, reproduction, excretion, nutrition. Every living organism has certain characteristics to be classified as living. These characteristics are movement, respiration, sensitivity, growth, reproduction, nutrition, and excretion. There are 7 characteristics that we need to go through. She is Mrs. Gren. By the example of Mrs. Gren, we can remember the names of these 7 characteristics. Mrs. Gren. M stands for movement. R stands for respiration. S stands for sensitivity. G stands for growth. R stands for reproduction. E stands for excretion. N stands for nutrition. If even a single one of these characteristics are absent or not present in an organism, then it is not alive. Movement is an action by an organism or part of an organism causing a change of position or place. This is called movement. Glucose is broken down by oxygen into carbon dioxide, water, and energy. This is called respiration. Respiration is the chemical reactions in the cells that break down nutrient molecules and release energy. Sensitivity. All the living organisms have characteristics of sensitivity. This is a special property. By these characteristics, organisms can feel hot, cold, touch, sounds, and they also have emotional sensitivity. They can be scared, they can be happy, etc. Sensitivity is the ability to detect stimuli in the internal or external environment and to make appropriate responses. Growth. All the organisms have property of growth. Growth is permanent increase in size and dry mass by an increase in cell number or cell size or both. Reproduction. All the organisms have characteristic of reproduction. Reproduction is a process by which organisms produce their young ones. Excretion is the removal of waste products from the body. Waste products are excessive water, salts, urea, carbon dioxide, and indigestible food. Nutrition is the property of all the living organisms. Nutrition is the taking in of materials for energy, growth, and development. Animals need organic compounds and mineral ions and usually need water. On the other hand, plants take water from soil, mineral ions from the soil, carbon dioxide from air, light from the sun. Plants require light, carbon dioxide, water, and ions. Now we sum up the lesson. Mrs. Gren. M for movement, R for respiration, S for sensitivity, G for growth, R for reproduction, E for excretion, N for nutrition. The topic to be discussed is classification, organisms grouping by same features. You will be able to group the organisms on the basis of their features. There are different kinds of millions of organisms, microorganisms, fungi, plants, reptiles, insects, and higher animals. There are millions of organisms on Earth. They are different in structure, size, and shapes. It's really difficult to study millions of organisms individually, one by one. So these millions of organisms are arranged in groups. All the microorganisms are arranged in a group. All the plants are arranged in a same group. All the fungi are arranged in a same group. All the snakes and snake-like animals, the reptiles, are arranged in a same group. All the insects are arranged in a same group. All the higher animals are arranged in a same group. All the organisms can be classified into groups by features that they share. Now we sum up the lesson. All the organisms are classified into groups on the basis of similar features. Organisms with similar features are classified into same group. Organisms with different features are classified into different groups. The end. The topic to be discussed is species. Learning objectives, you will be able to understand the term species. You will be able to define the term species. What is a species? Species is a group of organisms that can reproduce to produce fertile offspring. And what are fertile offspring? These are the offspring with ability to reproduce to give young ones. Example of species, the zoological name of lion is Panthera leo. Panthera is genus name of lion and Leo is the species name of lion. These are lions, tigers, and cheetahs. Lions can reproduce with lions only. Tigers can reproduce with tigers only. Cheetahs can reproduce with cheetahs only. Lions cannot reproduce with tigers. Lions cannot reproduce with cheetahs. Now we sum up the lesson. These are lions, these are cheetahs. Species is a group of organisms that can reproduce to produce fertile offspring. Members of same species can reproduce with each other and produce fertile offspring. Members of different species can't reproduce with each other. The topic to be discussed is binomial system. Learning objectives are you will be able to understand binomial system, to describe binomial system, to describe the importance of binomial system. What is binomial system? It's a system of scientific naming. It is also called binomial nomenclature. Binomial nomenclature. Bi means two. Nomial means names. Nomenclature means naming system. It's a system of giving two names to an organism. Biological name of man is Homo sapiens. Homo is a genus name of man. Sapiens is a species name of man. Levels of classification. Species is a lower level. Similar species are placed in a genus. Similar genus are placed in family. Similar families are placed in order, and so on. The binomial system, also known as the binomial nomenclature, is a system of naming living things using a two-part name consisting of a genus and a species. The topic to be discussed is dichotomous key. Learning objectives are you will be able to understand the term dichotomous key, to define the term dichotomous key, to construct a dichotomous key, to use a dichotomous key. A dichotomous key is a tool used in biology to identify and classify living organisms such as plants, animals, and microorganisms. It is a series of questions or statements that lead to the identification of a particular species. Characteristics of dichotomous key: the key presents two choices or options at each step. The user answers each question in sequence, with each answer leading to the next question. Each answer eliminates one of the two options, narrowing down the possibilities. Dichotomous keys are useful for identifying unknown organisms, teaching taxonomy, promoting critical thinking, promoting problem solving skills. Understand to draw dichotomous key. These are different shapes. Oval shape is separated on one side and non-oval shapes are separated on other side. And on next step, triangle shape is separated on one side and non-triangle shapes are separated on other side. On next step, a square is separated on one side and non-square is separated on other side. These are the animals. Draw a dichotomous key for given animals. Vertebrates, these are vertebrates. We have to draw a dichotomous key for them. At first level, animals with fur will be separated on one side. This is a mammal, it has fur, it is separated on one side. And animals without fur are separated on other side. On next step, animals with feather are separated on one side and animals without feather are separated on other side. And next, animals with dry skin are separated on one side and animals without dry skin are separated on other side. And next step is animals with scales are separated on one side and animals without scales are separated on other side. In this way, you can draw a dichotomous key for given organisms on the basis of their features. Now we sum up the lesson. A dichotomous key is a tool used in biology to identify and classify living organisms such as plants, animals, and microorganisms. It is a series of questions or statements that leads to the identification of a particular species. The topic to be discussed is classification systems aim to reflect evolutionary relationship. You will be able to understand that classification system aims to reflect evolutionary relationship. This is a skeleton of a man and an ape. Before advanced technology, classification was based on morphology, the external structures, the external characters. These are fur, feather, wing. Classification also based on anatomy, the internal structures. These are heart chambers, kidneys, bones, size of bone, number of bone, their order, their arrangement. Similar characters between different species predict their evolutionary relationship as they had been evolved from same ancestor. There are similar features in the skeleton of man and ape. These similar features reflect these two species have a common ancestor. Now we sum up the lesson. Similar characters between different species predict evolutionary relationship as they had been evolved from same ancestor. The topic to be discussed is classification by sequence of DNA bases. Learning objectives, you will be able to understand the role of DNA bases in classification. Again, we will study the example of man and ape. By the use of advanced technology, we can more accurately classify organisms by analyzing their DNA rather than their same look. Now, in this case, we don't consider their external characters or internal characters. We will focus on their DNA base sequence. Organisms which share similar DNA base sequences and protein amino acid sequences are more likely to be closely related. So, advanced classification is based on the base sequence in DNA and amino acids sequence in proteins. More closely related organisms are grouped together. They show same structures, which reflects their evolutionary relationship of having common ancestor. Common ancestry of organisms means to be evolved from same ancestor. Now we sum up the lesson. Advanced classification is based on DNA sequence. Organisms with same DNA sequences are closely related. Closely related organisms have common ancestor. The topic to be discussed is closely related organisms have more similar sequence of DNA bases. To understand that more closely related organisms have similar DNA bases sequence. Groups of organisms with more recent ancestor. These are more closely related because they have more similar DNA. Examples are a man and a dog. Now we trace their ancestor. Here is an ancestor of a man and a dog. So they have recent ancestors. That's why these two organisms are similar. On the other hand, there are groups of organisms with more distant ancestors. These organisms are not much closely related because they don't have similar DNA. Their DNA is not much similar. Examples are, you can see a man and a fish. We try to trace their ancestors. Here is the ancestor of fish, and here is the ancestor of man. Fish and man, they have distant ancestors. That's why they are not much similar to each other. They are quite different from each other. They are not closely related because their ancestors are at distant. They have distant ancestors. Now we sum up the lessons. Groups of organisms with more recent ancestors are more closely related because they have more similar DNA. And on the other hand, groups of organisms with more distant ancestor, they are not much closely related because their DNA is different. Their DNA is not much similar. This is the sum up of this lesson.